So we're going to have some real talk today and touch on this issue that plagues so many relationships. And this issue I'm referring to is money. However, because this topic is so large, I'm going to attempt to do it in a two-part series. In this first episode, I'll be talking directly to the lenders, and in another episode, I'll be talking directly to the borrowers. But don't get too comfortable in thinking that you know where you sit, because I'm very sure that every one of us has been in both positions at some stage in our lives, or one day will be. So if money is a sore subject in your relationship, stick around over the next few minutes and see what our manufacturer has to say on the topic of money. Hi, welcome to You Can Talk. I'm Ruth Finney, and this is a channel solely dedicated to helping you talk your way to healthy relationships. Whether you're married or dating or struggling to communicate with family or friends or people you work with, then this is the channel that will help you experience some real change. If you're willing to put some simple principles into practice, become a part of the Talk community by subscribing to You Can Talk and meet me here on Tuesdays for Talk Tips and Thursdays for Talk Lessons. And now you can also join me for Saturday night Talk to Ruth live sessions from 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Come walk with me through the user's manual as we discover some revelations in communication that you can incorporate into your life so that you can talk your way to healthier relationships. All too often, the underlying source of why we're struggling in our relationships is due to money matters that involve the exchange of funds from one hand to another. Do any of these statements sound familiar to you? I lent you money and you never paid it back. You stole from me without my knowledge. You take my money for granted. You're not entitled to my money. No amount I ever give you is enough. When will you quit borrowing money? Where's your money? I work every day. Why can't you? Oh, it's okay for you to waste my money, but when it's your money, it's a different story. I work too hard for my money to just give it away. I'm not a bank. What do you think, I have money trees growing in my backyard or something? Every time we go out, you never have money. I'm tired of always having to cover you. Why should I have to pay for your mess ups? I didn't do it. I have bills too, but you don't care anything about that. It's all about you. Now, I know there are plenty more, so if I miss the one you're constantly repeating, just keep it in your head and prayerfully I'll touch on it. Today, I'm just going to talk to the lenders on 4 main areas that I have had successful dialogue about in my relationships when it comes to lending money to others. Now, you may have other areas of focus, but these are the ones that have helped me to make healthy money decisions that everyone involved can be comfortable with, or at least respect. The first one is obligation. It can be easy to say no to lending money when we just don't have it and we don't have any way of getting it. However, when it's a family member or a very good friend or someone we know who's fallen on hard times, or even someone we barely know comes to us with a seemingly legit money problem, sometimes it can be difficult to say no, especially in times like these when we're just trying to keep our heads above water. We feel some level of obligation because maybe we feel a little convicted or actually do want to help. Maybe we don't want to hurt their feelings, come across as stingy or selfish or uncaring. Or maybe it's an image we're trying to uphold and it would look bad if we said no, so we just go ahead and give. Many times money issues becomes a problematic part of our relationships because when people ask, we feel obligated to lend. When the truth is we may not really be in the best position to fulfill that request. I know very few people who have an actual lending fund in their budgets. And hopefully you even have a budget because when most people lend money, it's typically money that's already allocated for another area of a set budget. Now, maybe we do have a little something put away as an emergency fund or something specific we're saving towards, but that's exactly what it's allocated for, the unintended emergency or the very thing that we're saving for. And we may be unwilling to dip into that fund. So how do we tell the person when this is the case? Well, in this situation, we can say, I understand that you need some financial assistance, but I'm currently not in a position to where I feel comfortable enough to lend out money. Now, for some people, that'll be enough. They'll say, I understand and look for other avenues. But for others, Persistence is their middle name. So if they persist and say things like, I'll pay you back as soon as this X, Y, or Z thing happens, or come on, you know you have it and I really need it. You can say in a firm and factual voice, I understand that you have every intention of paying it back, but life happens. And if for any reason you can't, then that would put me in a position that I can't afford to be in. And therefore, I'm unwilling to lend it out. It's not personal. And if that is still not enough for them and it's feasible, offer other ways to assist them other than financially. But if they get mad and have no further conversation, well, then you can end it from there, because now an issue of respect is arising, and that's another topic of discussion. Other times we may have money that we could afford to lend out, but we just don't really want to. Maybe it's an issue of frequency, an issue of entitlement, waste, or bad decision making, or for whatever other reasons we feel justified in not wanting to lend it. You don't have to feel the need to go into any kind of long explanation of why you're unwilling to lend it out, unless their borrowing history warrants a statement about it, such as, well, you didn't honor your words and pay me back the last time, so I can't assume that you will this time, and therefore I can't afford to be in that position. Whatever the reason, when making the decision on whether or not to lend money, you should have reasons outside of obligation. Which brings me to my next point, which is boundaries. The second thing you should have set up in your life when it comes to lending money is boundaries. These need to be clear and firm boundaries that you and your loved one or your business partner, if you have one of these, can stick to. For instance, maybe a boundary for you is not mixing personal relationship boundaries with business relationship money matters. Maybe you've hired a friend or family member to do some work for you, or you're renting a space out to them. Have them sign an employee contract or a lease agreement just like you would any other person you hired or would lease to. Don't make it personal and treat them as you would any other hiree or tenant. And if they're unwilling to sign or abide by their agreements, move on. It may be the best decision you ever made. One boundary may be that you have certain family members or friends that you're willing to lend money to, but not others because of their borrowing history. Maybe you have a certain limit in your checking or savings that you will allow yourself to get down to in order to help another, but not any further, so that you can ensure your bills or your expenses will be covered in case that unexpected emergency does happen. As lenders, when we break our boundaries of lending out money that is allocated for other areas, we put ourselves in a position of risk that can cause us financial strain, stress, bitterness, anger, and resentment if it's not given back. And while we can be mad at the borrower and want to sever our relationship with them because they haven't fulfilled their word, we cannot overlook the fact that we went against our better judgment, broke one of our boundaries, and allowed the person to talk us into putting ourselves in a position of unnecessary risk in lending out money that we really needed. If you know you have trouble sticking to your healthy boundaries when it comes to lending money, it may be safest for you to ask another person that you fully trust to help you in that area and allow them some financial oversight on whatever level you're comfortable with in order to keep you accountable. The third thing I'll speak on is lending parameters. One of the reasons we fall out with others is because we don't express our expectations, and we may even have compromised in the lending situation beyond the levels we're truly comfortable with. When this happens, we get angry at the borrower for not understanding and cut them off or cut them out of our lives, and they don't always understand why. Instead of making clear statements of what the agreements are, what our expectations are, and what the consequences will be if the agreements are not met, we make assumptions on what we think or hope the borrower might do. And when the borrower falls short of those expectations, we get mad, when half the time parameters may not even have been made clear or not even discussed. We have to remember that when parameters are not set and expectations are not expressed, assumptions are made on both ends, from the lender and the borrower. And those parameters don't always line up. So here are 3 parameters I like to have clear with all money matters in regards to relationships. The first one is the lending amount. Agree on a clear and firm, no compromise understanding in your head and with your business partner or your spouse if you're married that we will not lend out any level of money that we absolutely need back. If you know you need it, don't lend it, period. This means that if the amount the borrower is asking for is greater than what you can afford to lend, you can make a statement like this: I'm not in a position to lend out that amount of money, but I can afford to lend this amount. End of story. They can either accept it or reject it, but don't compromise. The second one is payback arrangements. Agree on a payback arrangement that works for the borrower. Yes, I said the borrower, because remember, we only lend money that we don't absolutely have to have back. So let the borrower, who is fully aware of what they're capable of doing, set the payback terms. Whether it's all at once, weekly, or monthly, agree to the terms that they set. That way, if the agreement is broken, the responsibility is on them. Our user's manual says in Luke chapter 6, verse 35, "But love your enemies and do good and lend, expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great, and you will be the sons of the Most High, for he is kind to the ungrateful and the evil." The third one is broken agreements. If the payment arrangement is broken and they fail to follow through with any more payments, we can remind them of the agreed upon terms and not feel compelled to ever lend money again if they ask, unless we just want to or feel led by God to be a blessing. This puts all the ownership and responsibility on the borrower to maintain the integrity of their word. So if they fail to honor that word, we don't have to feel any kind of way about it because, again, we gave what we felt comfortable in giving. We let them set the payback terms and gave them the power to build the trusting relationship with any future lending possibilities. The fourth area of money matters I focus on is privacy. No one outside of the people involved with the lending arrangement need to know about it. Divulging personal money matters outside of the people involved is a violation of trust. When we go around telling others that we've lent money to this person or that person, we're only attempting to find attention or show intimidation by exploiting the person in need. In our user's manual, Matthew chapter 6 verses 1 through 4 says, "Be aware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them. For then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. Thus, when you give to the needy, sound no trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may be praised by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what the right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you." When it comes to money matters, it's easy to let our emotions, family ties, close friendships, and assumptions get in the way of sound judgment. As a lender, talk about all money matters before you make any commitments and don't make exceptions or compromises that will only make you bitter later. Stop feeling obligated to lend more than what you're comfortable in lending or being called to give. Set up boundaries that you can stick to and ask for help when you need it. Talk about the parameters of the amount. Agree on a payback arrangement and get clear understanding on the consequences of a broken agreement so there are no assumptions or expectations unspoken. And by all means necessary, keep the agreement between the persons directly involved. Money matters don't have to become an issue that pollutes a relationship. Talk about it, be about it, and get it straight with everyone involved and get back to having the loving and peaceful relationships you once shared. If you can relate to any or all of these communication struggles and are tired of the seemingly endless cycle of communication barriers that are keeping you from the relationships that you desire to have with others, then become a talker. Subscribe to You Can Talk. Select that notification bell down below and meet me here on Tuesdays for Talk Tips and Thursdays for Talk Lessons. And now, Saturday night Talk to Ruth live sessions from 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Thanks for watching, and if you would please hit that like button, leave a comment below, and know that whatever you're committed to working on, I'm rooting for you and praying for you because you can tame the tongue, approach with compassion, listen deeply, knock down the barriers, and talk your way to healthier relationships. Let your communication be the light of God's love the world so desperately needs to hear.